Before we jump into it, we're going to have a presentation by Thandeka Tutu, who will be speaking to us about her work. Thandeka, I'll hand it over to yourself.
I am proud to be the patron of the Tutu Desk campaign. In sub-Saharan Africa alone, over 95 million children who go to school do not have a desk. Globally, the numbers are even more staggering. The Tutu Desk is a simple yet critical part of the school infrastructure, which dramatically improves literacy development, access, retention, and learning outcomes wherever it is deployed. We're proud to say that we have assisted over 1 million children through the Tutu Desk campaign thus far. But there is so much more to do, and through the Emergency Coalition, I commit to help the Tutu Desk campaign reach its goal of 20 million desks to 20 million children. I look forward to working with all of you to make sure that every child has the right to go to school and get an education. God bless you all and the important work that you do.
It is truly a great honor and privilege to be with you and be part of this very distinguished panel. Thank you, Planetiers, for having me here to present. And I'm truly crushed that I cannot be in beautiful Lisbon in person to enjoy not only the conference, but the wonderful food and the outstanding city and culture too. Of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 4 is the one that speaks to my area of interest, which is to ensure an inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. We truly believe that a good quality education is a foundation and bedrock of equitable and dynamic societies, and that it is our moral obligation to give every child the best education possible. Malala Yousafzai, at a speech just last month at the UN, told world leaders, if you are serious about creating a safe and sustainable future for the children, then be serious about education. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown us that our continent, Africa, and the world needs a little more nurture To nurture is to build, to sustain, and to create a lasting balance. Good leaders, the ones that make a positive difference, have a thirst for knowledge. We cannot change the things we are unaware of. We cannot make a difference when we do not know a difference needs to be made. Too often, we think of ourselves as individuals, separated from one another. Yet we are all connected, and what you do affects the whole world. I submit to you that this knowledge starts with literacy. It starts at school. It starts at the very foundation of learning. If we do not offer our girl children the basic tenets of understanding the world, then the world will continue to keep them, to a great extent, in servitude, undervalued, and underprivileged. Nothing will change. When we develop leaders, it's not just to develop female CEOs of the world. There are only so many CEO and senior positions. In business, women leaders are at all levels. The same applies in society, in families. Leaders impact the world around them, no matter the scale. We need to develop a pool of leaders so that we contribute to leadership from the top down, the bottom up, and from within to without. Everything has a value chain. There are stages to every development. Are we giving enough consideration to that, the grassroots achievement of functional literacy? Without this, our girls will not have the ability to learn more than what is directly around them. They will not ask different or difficult questions. When they learn those things they did not know, they will look at the world with a different view. They will disseminate and understand information and behavior, holding others accountable and themselves responsible, the foundations for true leadership. Accessing the formal learning structure, it starts with literacy. Access to financial literacy and training, it starts with literacy. Scaling opportunities, it starts with scaling literacy achievement. The education landscape for girl children is far more challenging than mere numbers indicate. 9 out of 10 poorest young women have not completed primary school. The United Nations again finds that gender inequalities are still deep-rooted in every society. Women suffer from lack of access to decent work and face occupational segregation and gender wage gaps. In many situations, they are denied access to basic education and healthcare and are victims of violence and discrimination. They are underrepresented in political and economic decision-making. And to change this, it begins with education at the very primary level. We simply have to create an environment where education includes the rights of girls and women. And we have to start early. The way to eliminate discrimination against women, to eliminate violence and subjugation, is by making the principles of equality and respect a foundational learning ethos. This is where leaders are nurtured. It is terrifying to me that globally, there are over 31 million girls of primary school age out of school. 34 million adolescent girls are out of school. It surely must be unacceptable that almost a quarter of young women aged 15 to 24 in developing countries have never completed primary school. And 2/3 of illiterate people in the world are women. These numbers should be an affront to humanity, and certainly an affront to the ideal of developing women leaders. Can world leaders expect us to believe that they are serious about education with statistics like these? I believe that when we ignore a focused effort to offer our young girls literacy, the basis for not only leadership, but self-development and knowledge, then unfortunately, we will be having this same conversation 20 years from now. Leadership starts when we ourselves nurture the gateway to knowledge in our young girls and a greater understanding of the world and their role in it. I come from a family of strong, sassy women. You do know that is a nice way to say opinionated, bossy women. My mother used to keep a sign in my parents' bedroom that says, "You are entitled to your own wrong opinion." And her favorite bumper sticker was, "Any woman who wants to be exactly like a man is a woman with no ambition." So growing up, whenever there was anything to be done in our family, for the most part, it got done due to the coming together and support of not only the women in our immediate and extended family, but our family of sister friends and neighbors. As women demand to be treated equally, paid the same as men for the same work, look for justice in healthcare. For me, one of the most important things is to start at the beginning and demand equal access to education. Because if we cannot get the most fundamental, the most basic things right for all, if we don't level the initial playing field from the outset, we are never going to win this war and are always going to be fighting the wages and work conditions inequality forever. I believe that the only way we will eliminate discrimination, violence, and subjugation against women is by making the principles of equality and respect a foundational learning ethos for both girls and boys. Teach them when they are young boys, and you won't have to retrain them when they are young men, or old men for that matter. The right to education states that education is a key element to achieving lasting peace and sustainable development. It's a powerful tool in developing the full potential of everyone and in promoting individual and collective well-being. Education is not simply a moral imperative, it's the smart choice. Every dollar invested generates $10 to $15 in return. It's the basic building block of society. Education provides knowledge of what the world offers, and this knowledge fires up ambition and aspiration. Aspiration leads to effort, and effort leads to a greater economic contribution. Education lifts people out of poverty. Education boosts economic growth. One extra year, just one extra year of school increases earnings by 10% for boys and 20% for girls. In brief, education is an empowerment right. an indispensable means of realizing other rights. It contributes to the full development of the human personality, the community, and the country. Nelson Mandela said, "No country can develop to its full potential unless its citizens are educated." On our continent of Africa, in general, primary school attendance rates are high, but an estimated 42% will drop out before completing this phase, partly because the conditions are so tough, which makes teaching and learning an onerous burden and task. The solution is not only to get children into school. In context, that is actually the easy part. The challenge is to make the school conditions also conducive to children staying in school. Sorry. What does educating girls really mean in practical ways? Educated women are less likely to die in childbirth. Educating girls can save millions of lives. Mothers' education improves child nutrition. Girls with higher levels of education are less likely to get married at an early age. Educated women are more likely to find work. With results like these, we should be doing all we can to improve the educational experience of girls wherever and however we can. I really love this term that you have coined, low-tech, high-touch. I do not think you can get much lower tech than our tutu desks. However, low-tech, and I want to make sure you see one. Sorry, just in case you didn't see the pictures. However, low-tech does not in any way equate to low impact. So on our continent, 95 million children go to school without. And if you consider literacy, the ability to read and to write, then if in their formative years, school years, children do not have a solid surface to practice writing, they never develop the skill. And so come out of school system as basically semi-literate. This has a major detrimental domino effect, starting with their education and thus their ability to compete economically for jobs, which affects the child, their families, their communities, their country, their continent, and yes, our whole world too. How can we ever hope our children will take their place as fully competent, literate global citizens with their counterparts in the rest of the world when we're not putting in the resources for them to do so? How are we grooming the next generation of leaders when we're not even providing the most basic of educational infrastructure pieces to ensure they attain at least a functional level of literacy, a desk? For instance, South Africa has a school desk shortage of about 3 million out of 12 million learners in school. This is not the worst on the continent. Mozambique has 9 million children in school. 7 million of them have no desks. Globally, that figure of 95 million for the African continent is actually 500 million when we combine every continent. So we have come up with an African solution to a global problem. Our tutu desk is just a handheld, portable structure made of recyclable materials. One side is blank, the other has educational information printed on it. The writing can be customized, include health and human rights messaging, as this ends up being a walking billboard through the community as the kids carry it to school, from home and back again. And I am proud of the fact that the desks are manufactured in South Africa. The beauty of the Tutu desk is it can be used in any classroom situation, whether the classroom is a bricks and mortar structure, where kids may actually have chairs but no desks, or even if the classroom is under a tree. Also, the child can take it home to use when doing homework. As you can imagine, if you go to school where there are no desks, then it is unlikely that your home will have a desk set up for you to do homework. Tutu Desk addresses one of the most basic education infrastructure needs for our children. Already 2 million children in 22 countries in sub-Saharan Africa have had the opportunity to have their educational experience enhanced, their literacy improved through the gift of a Tutu desk. However, our goal is to give out 20 million of these by 2025. A Tutu desk in its most basic form is just a writing surface. But in the course of our work, we have found additional side benefits to this gift. It is also, in a very real sense, a gift of dignity. It's a powerful voice that says to the child receiving it, you are worthwhile. You do matter. Somebody cares enough about your future to offer you the platform to build one on. The Tutu desk is more than anything a hand up, not a hand out. It belongs to the child. It offers a unique sense of ownership. This is my desk. I will use it every day, because I'm somebody. Those are words spoken by every child who gets a Tutu desk at a handover. From my own experience, no statistic or description can impart the emotion and excitement at a Tutu desk handover. Often given in the poorest communities, it is usually the first new anything a child will own. And it is inspiring that years after a handover, the Tutu desks are still in schools, still being used, and still playing an important role in literacy development. How do we know it works? It's not good enough simply to make something and deliver it. It has to work. Independent research done by AusAid has shown impact in learner motivation, classroom organization, and the ability to write more in class. In many of our schools, there is no Wi-Fi or internet in classrooms or homes. This highlights the need for an alternative option to just high-tech solutions. The reality is we also currently need low-tech, high-touch solutions like the Tutu desk. My father used to say there was a time when you traveled and had to carry or lug around heavy suitcases weighing you down. Then someone came up with the idea of putting wheels on suitcases. And now everyone's suitcases has wheels, and lugging around a heavy suitcase is no more. Is that not low-tech, high-touch at its best? Lifting up the next generation at its core is leaving the world just a little bit better than we found it. When we commit to serving others, we often find we also serve ourselves at the same time. Humanity is a strange thing. The gift of giving is also the gift of receiving. The joy and excitement on the faces of the children when they receive the Tutu desk is indescribable. Our children are so excited about education because they know that is a way for them to improve their lives. It's a way out of the depths of poverty for themselves, their children, their families, their communities, their cities, their country, and the world. Lifting up the next generation through education and the gift of a Tutu desk offers a unique outcome. The true gift of a Tutu desk to a child is that it is a generational gift. It allows this generation to better their circumstances in order to smooth the road for the next. It is hoping that our world, our children and grandchildren will inherit a world that will be a little less onerous, a little more just, a little more fair, and maybe also a little more equal. Not just through the orders of a high-tech world, but by ensuring that even if some of our solutions are low-tech, they are definitely high-touch and make a difference to the lives, aspirations of our children and our world. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful, insightful presentation. I learned so much about the project and about the impact as well. Like it's, I loved your definition of African solution to a global problem, because it's something we can all certainly learn from. But before we jump into discussion proper, I want to introduce our other panelists to the discussion as well. We have Rebecca Saltman over here, the founder of DisruptForGood.Life. We have Cara Valentine, the founder of Threads Worldwide and the creator of the Elevation Ecosystem, and Maria Pacheco, the president and co-founder of Wakami Global. You're all very welcome, and thank you all so much for taking the time to join us here at Planetiers. I guess where I want to start is just to contextualize to the audience the work each of you do. And Cara, I'll start with yourself, if that's okay. Threads Worldwide, it's about sourcing jewellery, with a very simplified description of sourcing jewellery from around the world and introducing disadvantaged areas to new demographics, new markets, and so on. But can you give us an overview of the work you do and the impact you have on these demographics and locations?
Of course, thank you. Hi, everyone. So Threads, what we really do is create global connection and partnership between entrepreneurs in emerging countries like Guatemala, and you'll hear a lot more about that from Maria. She's one of our partners. I'm looking at my jewelry. Ethiopia, Uganda, India, and these women in these countries make beautiful jewelry, accessories, home goods, handmade goods. And we partner them with women here in the US that we call socialpreneurs. Now, these are women who earn income by selling all of these products. So that's the major partnership that we create. Our whole goal is how do we create more demand for all of these amazing products, and how do we offer women in the US the opportunity to do work that inspires them, where they're able to be flexible and really live the life that they're here to live. Our latest project has really been creating partnerships with philanthropic organizations. One of our dreams is how do we replace things like cookies and popcorn and all of those wrapping paper, all of those fundraising ideas with a fair trade product, so that we're really creating more and more impact.
Right, amazing. And Maria, with Wakami Global as well, you focus primarily on the lives of rural women and their struggle to generate sources of income for their family by empowering them. Again, very oversimplified description of it, but can you tell the audience just a bit more about the work you do, how you impact lives, and the overall goals of the organization?
Sorry that we lost the volume.
Oh, sorry.
Was,
It was basically a very long-winded statement disguised as a question. So if you could just tell us a little bit about Wakami Global, like the mission statement, the philosophy, and the impact the organization has on lives.
yeah, well, thank you. It's great to be there with everybody. Just maybe to say why we got started. I was a biologist. I am a biologist in Guatemala and really trying to recover ecosystems. But as we were in communities, running into women where Guatemala had a 30-year war, internal war, and then we had, after the war, more people dying because of poverty. And so being in those communities, it was the women that asked, if you can sell what we do, the rest you can do. So our mission statement changed to, okay, what can we sell from these communities to the market? And at the beginning, we started selling everything, tomatoes, handmade products, all kinds of things, and realized that to be competitive, we really needed to to concentrate on one product to create a brand. And so we decided to go with handmade goods because Guatemalan women, they have magical hands, and that's how we started with something that Thandeka was saying is so low tech, but that is in every home in countries like Guatemala. So it's been 30 years since we started with this, and now we've really developed a system where we have the formula for change, which is dreams plus opportunities equals change. So the dreams of people here, and especially of women, is that their kids, especially their girls, won't have the same lives that they had. And because of that, they're willing to go out of the status quo and change social norms to have an income that will allow them to change their lives. So our system, so that's their dreams, but the opportunities that we have are three: to really be able to create thriving communities and thriving families. The first one is we work with a lot of women that say we want income but don't have a business or don't have anything. So we incubate businesses from a group of women that have a dream to a formal business that can be part of a global value chain. Then we realized incubating businesses wasn't enough. So we really needed to find a market and develop a market. And that's how we said, okay, on one hand, we incubate a business, and the other, we create products, we create a brand, we create a value chain that can reach from these rural homes to the world. And that's where we meet people like Threads, like Kara, like Rebecca. And then we thought, okay, women have income, everything's going to change. But it doesn't, because in Guatemala, there's no health system, the educational system's not so good. So then we created the last part, which is how when women have income, it can be transformed into three things that they prioritize. Into better nutrition. In Guatemala, we have 50% of children undernourished, 1 out of 2 children. They wanted to have education. Right now, after COVID, the World Bank has said the average school years is 3.5 years for the Guatemalan population. And so women wanted to change that. And the other part is healthy homes. So, we do these 3 things: incubate, have income, and then get an educational platform to how to transform that into quality of life. And we do it in 2 value chains that are really low tech, but that we love. And it's regenerative agriculture through hands, gardens, and coffee, and handmade and light manufacturing products. So these 2 value chains, there's a possibility in every rural home in Guatemala to work from those. And just to finish, our philosophy is everybody has a dream, and our role is to give people the opportunity to fulfill those. And the other one is we've realized that we started trying to change other communities, but after 30 years, we've all become one community, each one with their own talents that we can put together in a value chain and create beautiful products that transform lives, recover the ecosystems, and transform perspectives too. So that's what we do.
Right. That's fascinating, and Rebecca, thank you so much for waiting so patiently, following up from them three. But the kind of the core theme, just from even that introduction, is the empowerment element. It's not about, oh, we'll give you this and go away. It's the follow through. It's that they'll take it for, the Tutu desk, for example. It's about saying it's mine. It's that kind of empowerment of having something and tangible that you can relate to, and all of that kind of ties back into empathy, which is something you're very much a specialist as. Like, it seems like that there are more and more projects like these ones that were mentioned coming up, and I think it's a case that you're seeing more of a shift towards that mindset, as there's still a lot of education needed in terms of people stepping up and recognizing that there are areas that need addressing, and that can, raising everyone up is a net benefit for all.
Let's say yes. Yeah. And I first of all want to thank Planetiers and thank my beautiful friends from all around the world, despite this low-tech, high-touch. I'm sitting here in Lisbon. Kara's in Denver, Colorado. I think Tandi's back in Africa. Are you back in Africa?
No, I'm still in Atlanta.
You're in Atlanta. And Maria's in Guatemala. And so, and I get my friends all here with me today. So I'm a little emotional and very grateful. And speaking of empathy, not that any of these three ladies know anything about empathy, right? I think that the deep connection to the planet and each other is what connects all of the four of us and their projects and so forth. So meanwhile, I'm wearing a lot of Wakami and threads. I'm sad to say I don't have a tutu desk with me. I really wish I had gotten one shipped here. But the love that is put into every piece of jewelry. I was in Guatemala in August, and the ladies, again, were trying to teach me how to make bracelets. I think they taught me this time. And what I have to say about this is that it's about empathy. It is like they are sent home. If they're in a bad mood, the ladies in Guatemala are sent home. They are not allowed to make jewelry in a bad mood. That we have to actually be really attentive to how we feel and what we are doing. And it goes for all of the three things that we are discussing, including, Disrupt for Good, disrupts all of the stuff that I pay attention to these ladies. And I want to say that also the company that I'm working with, Value Flow, is about all of these three companies all look at the way value flows. Social capital, emotional capital, human capital are first and foremost. So when we're speaking about low tech, high touch, that is all first and foremost in those.
Yeah, it's that whole thing of the consistency of everything in the world is people. Yes. People are at the center of it all, and you can't treat them like a statistic or like a net output. They are individuals with their hopes, their dreams, as mentioned, their ambitions, their worries, their responsibilities, and all of this is taking that into account. It's not just empowering them, it's also giving a very human eye to major issues around the world, like Tutu Desk, for example, like empowers people through education, because everybody needs literacy skills, because it opens up so many doors. And it's that thing of having those at the top to recognize that, yeah, this is just as big an issue for, like, even in a small organization. Taking care of people, the social, emotional, mental capital is a huge part of it, probably bigger than the profit and loss element of it.
Well, I'll let the ladies speak about this, but they all focus on all the capitals, not just, obviously there needs to be capital, financial capital as well. But for example, I'm not going to step on Maria's toes, but like the work that she's doing right now in terms of making sure they have the women have early wins and have like chickens and starter vegetables and so forth, that doesn't take financial capital, it takes human capital and time and attention first. and it takes capital to actually do some of those things as well, of course. But these and Tutu desks are made in Africa on purpose with local and environmental things. So, and I'm going to let Kara talk about her stuff too. So, go ahead.
You can talk for all of them. It's just easier for me moderating.
No, but I don't. Well,
of course, yeah.
Maria, will you tell everybody about? Will you tell everybody about the work with the chickens and the starter plants in communities?
Yeah, well, I think just going back to the initial question of empowerment, people tell us, oh, you empower the women. We say, we don't empower anybody. The women, as they go through their process and have to, just even though they have fears, the dream becomes stronger and they become growing and they start income. And just like the Tutu desk is not only a desk, it's a symbol for a woman to have a source of income. It's also a symbol that she is worth it, that she can have it in her to change her reality. And that's really how women become empowered. And it's in very hard countries. I think the dream is so important because the reality is so hard that you have to have a dream and just celebrate the little wins. So with our regenerative agriculture, we get hens at the 18-week period where once they come into the communities, they start laying eggs. So, you have short wins very fast, and then you start with transplants, and then you have, vegetables really fast. Or with the bracelets, it's, we make it that within 2 months that the women start the training, the incubation, they also start the bracelet, so that within 2 months they have the first source of income. So I think when you have a history of failure, it's so important to celebrate wins. And that's really that's how we all human beings are. You have a little win, you believe a little bit more, and you're willing to go a little bit farther. And so that's what we're passionate about.
It's that forward momentum that's so important because I guess in general humans can feel like a bit defeated when something doesn't work out straight away, but it's that having those tiny goals can lead, and again in the whole team of low tech, high impact, these are all like small solutions in the greater scheme of things, but they have such a big impact that they bring people forward. And Thandeka, bring yourself back into it with Tutu Desk. You mentioned there that you have 22 countries enhanced by Tutu Desk, and I imagine that empathy and understanding of each country, each region comes into play, because it doesn't seem like you go into a one size fits all. You meet the needs of the kids, of the students, of the area, and that's obviously more work and so on, but the gains of the social capital, emotional, so on are are astronomical, even if we can't, say, quantify it. I imagine that is, a big part of what you do.
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm not, because I'm not sure, I can't see anybody anymore except for Kara and Maria. So, in a sense, it's a one size fits all, in that the Tutu test is this. I mean, it's but the material on it is what is different, and so that you get through talking with communities about what's important to them, and because it's education and basic education at that. There's usually something, some literacy or, the alphabet or the times table, something that are common in the education space. But yeah, I mean, we've done this for French-speaking countries and for the Francophone and the Anglophone countries. We've actually done desks for refugee children in Pakistan too, with UNHCR. So there are many situations where these actually become useful, not just your regular classroom, right?
And the other part I was going to mention as well that you brought up in the presentation is the light, how light they are as well, that you can bring them anywhere. Having the ability, thinking of that follow through, not just what happens in the classroom, but learning happens outside of it as well. And that ability to replace with heavy briefcases, as you mentioned in the presentation, to lightweight tutu desks is, a small detail again, but again, massive impact. Yeah, and sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, our children walk many miles to school, and giving them something that's heavy would defeat the purpose, because then they I'm not carrying this home. I'm not lugging this around, and so then they don't have either they won't have a desk at school or they won't have one at home where they do homework, and that defeats the purpose of them having that solid surface wherever it is that they are learning. So yeah.
And Cara, I mentioned in the intro that you're the creator of the elevation ecosystem, which touches upon a lot of what we're discussing here. But for the audience, can you give them a little bit more detail about what the ambitions are of that, what the philosophy is, and how it's...
Sure.
Yeah.
You got it. As an empath, my whole life, I've been very, as a kid, watching the news and seeing all of the suffering in the world was just horrific for me. And there have been plenty of days, over all of my years where I hear about what's happening in the world and I just want to, get under my covers. And so it's interesting because I was never a science girl, but I started getting interested in how ecosystems work in nature and started learning about them and realized that our whole society is really based on parasitic ecosystems where, there's a parasite that's sucking, and the percentage of people that are really able to thrive based on the systems that we have created is so small. And so I thought about, what if, we looked at ecosystems more as mutualistic, and then I took it one step further and thought, what if we created elevation ecosystems where the lens, as we're working with partners, et cetera, the lens that we look at is everyone being elevated through their participation in this ecosystem? And so that's what we use at Threads. There are 4 major tenets, and it's a shared mission and vision, an environment that calls forth people's unique gifts and talents. That's something I think that's totally lost in society right now. The third E is every member is connected, and the D is a deep trust in ourselves and our fellow members. And, Tandi said earlier, when we're serving others, we're serving ourselves. And that's just something we talk about a lot. We're trying to change the conversation here in the US from looking at, trying to rid this white savior, looking at, people in the US as the helpers, that it's such a dangerous way to look at the world. So our conversations are all around, okay, through creating these relationships and these partnerships, who's being elevated and how. And elevation can look a lot of different ways, whether it's through income generation, whether it's spiritually, emotionally, etc. But our whole lens is around, okay, and we do this in everything that we do, whether it's with our artisan partners, whether it's with our customers, whether it's with our printing vendor, are all of these relationships elevating one another.
It sounds very much like a case of removing the ego from, for want of a better term, from these kind of decisions, because even the mention of...
Shoot, our technology, I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear anything.
No, I can't either.
Oh, my apologies. Can you hear me now?
There's a lot of
Can you hear me?
Noise.
Can you hear me?
echo and static.
Echo and static. That's not great.
So, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's better. That's better.
Okay, great. Sorry, apologies for that. But otherwise, just to jump off what you're saying.
No.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, Rebecca.
You want my
Have a
microphone?
standoff.
You want my microphone?
hopefully you can hear me better without static. Fingers crossed.
It's been really going, it's a technology thing because it's great for this panel. High touch, low impact, low technology, but it's a technological thing because it keeps going in and out.
Yeah, the high tech is not
The high tech.
Not great.
the high tech
You really wanted to give the
is not
impression.
touching us really well right now.
Can you hear us when we're talking to you? Are we coming through clearly?
Yes.
We can hear you.
I don't know, maybe you can chat the questions while the technology, I don't know what to say.
Well, I guess
I think we're nearly out of time.
Putting my IT down.
Well, can you hear me? Not so much.
I feel like this might.
Okay, next time we'll come to Lisbon.
I feel like this.
I think that's the lesson. We all need to be in Portugal together.
Right.
I can hear the static from here as well, but I think this microphone is working a little bit.
Not just static, if there's a kind of like there's a wind or something.
Well, that's better.
They can't hear us.
I can hear you now.
You can hear me now?
I heard, yeah.
Can you hear
Quinton's question was
Yeah.
to you, Kara. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
Quinton's question
Oh,
was
yes.
to you, and the question was that the elevation ecosystem basically is leaving the ego out. You know?
What I heard was elevation ecosystem, but Rebecca, maybe, I'm sure you can answer whatever he's asking.
I'm not going to try to answer. Can you hear me now?
we found out the solution that it's muting the microphones so they're all feeding into each other.
Okay, can we chat that to them?
Yeah. If you can mute the microphones, that's where the static is.
Can you mute when you're not talking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear now? Yes, okay. Quinton, your turn.
As you better encapsulated earlier on there, Rebecca, I was saying, Cara, it seems like the elevation ecosystem is removing the ego away from it, because even the question of, how do we solve it, is a very arrogant way of looking at it, because it assumes that we're the only people who give the solution, rather than a global, as Thandeka mentioned, African solution to a global problem. Every area, every demographic has solutions. It's just that we're not listening to them. And that's what we're trying to solve by the sounds of it.
Yes, I love that. And something that I've been saying and thinking recently is just, we have all of the answers to the world's problems alive on the planet right now. It's just that people can't access them. So whether it's people living in poverty who, can't, we always talk about people accessing their gifts and talents and living their purpose out in the world. Well, how are you going to do that when you're trying to figure out how to feed your family? And then, so we're going to come over to the U.S. where, the women that we work with here are in a very different situation financially, yet they're born into the patriarchy and are living within the system that they think they should be living in, which is not teaching our kids and our girls and people in general to really tap into what brings them alive. They're taught to take certain tracks, which live a certain way, which is really just elevating, the top however many percent, small percent. So that's what we spend our time on, is really having these conversations. Our goal is to have people think differently, and think differently when, they're engaging with threads, of course, but when they're outside, and just making a lot more conscious decisions.
And Maria, I was delighted that you mentioned about not having small communities, but one large community, because I think it's important that we recognize that community can come at vastly different levels. They can be very micro or they can be large as well. And having that, I guess, for want of a better term, like a follow through, or like those connections that you can go bigger or smaller to meet the needs of the respective communities, no matter how big or small, is really the heart of what everyone here is getting at. Like in terms, and especially in your work where you're connecting up all these different communities, different dots together to create something that's greater than the sum of its parts. Is that the case, or am I just blabbering on it?
No, that's exactly right. And I guess just one more thing I want to hit on is also, going back to, again, Condi saying, by serving others, we're serving ourselves, is really throughout the elevation ecosystem, you're looking outward to figure out if your partners are being elevated, and that being the lens, but also looking within and recognizing, through these partnerships, through these relationships, I'm being elevated as well. And so when people start thinking about it in terms of that, again, it really, it shifts the conversations from people being helpers to recognizing, whoa, look at what I'm getting out of this. I can't tell you for years how many people have said, oh, Kara, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the work that you do. And I'm like, don't thank me, because I'm partners with these trailblazing women around the world. I get to do work that I'm passionate about. I get to earn an income. I'm not doing any favors here. We are all equals, and because they're giving their gifts and talents, and thank goodness I'm on the sales and marketing side and not on the bracelet making side. I tried to do one, it wasn't great. We're all in this together, and that's our whole point, is how do we really see ourselves as part of this world ecosystem.
Fantastic. And Maria, I want to bring you back into it as well, because I think a lot of what Cara was saying ties in with your work as well, and even Rebecca saying about the necklace, or like I forget the company that they would send people home if they're not feeling. Oh, my apologies.
It's Wakami.
My apologies. I'm flustered, but I imagine again that's building upon what Cara's saying. Like this, you're serving these communities in your own unique way, and ultimately giving, I guess, not just expanding the safety net, but kind of allowing people to move in whatever direction they want, having them the option, but also making sure that it's them that are doing it and that are getting the wins, rather than, yep, I did loads, I'm great, kind of thing. Because that, again, that defeats the purpose of the work each panelist here is doing.
Yeah, I think like Kara, what your elevated ecosystem, as Kara was talking, I'm like, that's exactly what happened like with Wakami. We did start trying to solve a problem, which was the lack of opportunities. But as we worked together with all the women and with our partners, we became one community where we were all being elevated. For me, before when I got started in Guatemala during the war, it's like, I just want to run away from this planet. I want to run away from this country. And as we gathered with the communities and together we started creating change, I started believing first I started having hope. I started believing that a better world is possible. And I started also having to grow and to empower myself, thinking these are big challenges, but as I saw myself growing. So I think this elevating ecosystem, I love the concept I told Kara. And I see it, like with the women. For me, like my dream is to see happy people in a happy earth. And when you live in Guatemala, you have to do something because none of that is happening at some points. But now as we work together, and for example, we have a woman in Lake Atitlan, one of the most beautiful lakes. She didn't have an income, but now she has an income. She's sending her kids to school, and now she has become the vice president of the recycling co-op of the women around the lake. So it's like, I supported her with an opportunity, but now she's making my dream come to reality, which is seeing a cleaner lake and a cleaner earth. So I do believe, that's why I say the big shift in Wakami is from we're trying to work with others, is we are all one. And when we bring our talents together, everything gets transformed. And I think for us, as we see the change that happens from like a country where only 3.5 years of school attendance. The Wakami kids have 8 years, including the girls. Or as the women start having income, malnutrition decreases by 60% within the first 3 years. We start realizing that change is possible. And like we say in Wakami, it's just, an individual dream is very strong, a collective dream is unstoppable. And when you create a community that dreams together, that real change happens and personal transformation happens.
Thandeka as well, you mentioned about leadership in your presentation and how it must come from all parts of demographics, of pools, etc. I imagine as well, like that's where that empathy comes from, because you're not just thinking about how children are impacted now with the learning, you're thinking about maybe 20, 30, 40 years down the line where there's a more fairer, equitable, not just Africa, but world as well, because all of these solutions, all of these ideas, they're all interconnected and we can always learn from each other. I imagine, again, that empowerment is thinking about the very long term of the world as opposed to just the short and medium term. There's a follow through is what I'm trying to get at.
Indeed, and that's correct. And I think the bottom line for me is that you don't know where the next Nelson Mandela is coming from. You don't know which child it is who is going to come with some major, a new breakthrough for, finally defeating COVID. But if you don't give those children an opportunity to be educated, we might never get that. And so if we, the more children who are educated, the more gifts and talents the world has available to it. Just because you've increased the pool of and the capabilities of people to excel wherever it is that they are, and you're not, and a family is different people bringing different talents and making things work. And so you don't give people leadership. I mean, leaders, if you can think you are a leader and you have no one following you, note to self, maybe you're not a leader. So just expanding the pool of educated people in our world just expands the pool of quality and leadership and what the world is able to do. And it seems like such a no-brainer, quite honestly. But yeah, maybe we need to change our world leaders.
I think all of us are in for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Rebecca, you probably are best kind of placed in that, because of what the type of leadership we need isn't somebody who can make decisions, it's somebody who can understand, and not just one or two, we need it over the entire collective as well. So it's a huge undertaking to deal with, but I imagine as well, like, there are sprouts of possibilities, especially from our three panelists who are coming in from Zoom, showing that it can be done. It just needs everyone to recognize that they are only one piece of the picture, not the entire picture.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Tandy.
And
Exactly.
Oh, my apologies. I was going to say, since we're gone over time quite a bit, I want to wrap it up, but give each of you the final word on this panel session. So my main question is for the audience that's here and watching, what's the one piece of advice, the idea or thought you want them to walk away with from this panel session? Actually, Rebecca, I'll start with yourself first, since you're just moving the microphone there.
So First of all, I want to thank my friends around the world for being here and waking up at dark 30 in the morning. And
thank you so much for that, by the way.
Yeah, very early, so thank you, thank you. And second, I wanted to say that how critical it is to weave together and put together all of these pieces and how we belong to each other. And it is time for us to actually consider all of these pieces as we move forward in our world that seems like it's falling apart. Because, the bracelets I am wearing have literally been handmade by people with love that Maria, Kara, and I all know. And so, that needs to be the metaphor for what we are doing right now. And in this time, we need to put our time and attention in that. And so that's what I'd like to leave with.
Fantastic. And Maria, I'll bring the question to yourself. What idea or thought or concept would you like the audience to walk from away from this talk with?
I think it's a power of low tech, whether it's bracelets, whether it's desks. Low tech is the last meter into communities of the world that are disconnected. And so, but it changes lives because through a desk, through an income opportunity, people become empowered. And once people are empowered, there's nothing that they can't do. So this mile, this last thing into the most remote places in the world is low tech. But once people are lifted, they can access high tech and they can access anything else. So the power of a nail on a desk that will produce a bracelet that will make it to the world, or the power of a desk. It's how we change the world.
Fantastic. And
love that.
Kara, what piece of advice would you like the audience to walk away?
Yeah, I'm going to give the advice that I'm giving to myself on a daily basis, which is take a minute, be quiet, listen to, connect spiritually, whatever that looks like for you. Again, I just have this very deep belief that we all have unique gifts and talents. We all have a unique purpose in the world. So just do what you can to connect with that, and then take one step in that direction, whatever makes you come alive.
Fantastic. And Thandeka, I'll give you the final word on this panel discussion. What would you like the audience to walk away with from this discussion?
I think I'm going to repeat Malala's words, because those to me kind of struck at the core of everything, that if leaders, if world leaders and people in general are serious about making sure that this world is a worthwhile one for our children, particularly our girl children, then we all have to be serious about a good quality basic education.
Fantastic. Well, we'll leave it there. Rebecca, Thandeka, Kara, and Maria, thank you all so much for taking the time to come here to chat to us, and at different time zones as well. We should really emphasize how much of an effort that is. And thank you, audience, for attending as well. Hope you took something away from it.
Everybody.
So please show your appreciation for our panelists. Applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.